Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the artist formerly known as Prince, has been caught expensing prostitutes on the taxpayer during a trade visit to Hong Kong. Now, as many of you know, I've been relatively nice about the former Prince Andrew, simply because I believe he's not as bad as the media have made him out to be. But I'm afraid what I'm going to tell you in this story is an issue of national security, is an issue of defrauding the taxpayer, and is a completely outrageous piece of behaviour. I'm also going to explain to you why I was nice to Prince Andrew before and why I'm not going to be nice to him now. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, please consider making a donation to the Patriot Fund. The link is below. We support patriotic causes in a small way right around the country. And of course, we give you that updates that we send out on a regular basis. So if you donate, we get your email address and do that. Okay, so first of all, why was I being quite nice to Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor in the past? Well, I'll tell you why I was being quite nice about him. Because Virginia Giuffre said that whilst she had been trafficked, she'd also been groomed. And therefore, anyone who slept with her did not know that she was a slave. Certainly she didn't either, because she'd been groomed. As such, Prince Andrew, if the allegations are true against him, which I think we all assume they are, all he did was slept with her when she was over the age of consent in London, when he didn't know that she'd been trafficked because she didn't tell him. The subsequent occasion, she was over the age of 18 and they were in the United States of America. So I think that whilst his association with Jeffrey Epstein is completely unacceptable, the fact he hasn't cooperated with the FBI is completely unacceptable. I was at least willing to be fair-minded to him. You know, he's not accused of messing with little kids, and the other point to make is he didn't know she'd been trafficked. Okay, but let's set that apart. Some of you are going to agree with me on that. Some of you are going to disagree with me on that. Trade mission in 2010 to Hong Kong. Now, do you know something? I kept wondering to myself, why on earth does Andrew continually insist, rather than staying at the ambassador's residence, which is where royals normally stay, why does he keep insisting on staying in five-star hotels? Well, of course, it's because the security at the door of the ambassador's residence will not allow him to bring prostitutes back, and there would be CCTV footage of it happening anyway. Similarly, if you put in a hotel bill, and people were saying that these hotel bills were enormous, what they do at any major hotel, and I'm sorry to tell you this, and certainly it's not something I've ever done, but they will list prostitutes as additional services. So you can expense hookers on your hotel bill, which is precisely what he did. So first of all, you, as the struggling British taxpayer, paid for his prostitutes. Also, you paid for hotels that were not needed because there was space in the ambassador's residence. And by the way, the ambassador's residence in Hong Kong, I don't know what it's like, but it's bound to be absolutely fantastic, because it'd be something like the governor's former house or something like that. Anyway, let me tell you another bit of this that is really, really troubling and really, really dangerous. So, I had a friend of mine who is just a part-time presenter on Talk TV. She went on holiday to Moscow, right? Now, when she went into her hotel bathroom, she unscrewed the mirror from the wall and there was listening devices all behind it. The room was wired for video and sound by the FSB or the GRU, whichever intelligence service is applicable. Let me tell you something. If Prince Andrew stayed in a hotel in Hong Kong, which he did, the Chinese intelligence service will have wired the thing so that you could barely even tiptoe without them knowing in Beijing. All the footage of everything that will have taken place in that room will have been got by the Chinese. Now, you can say the security will have swept it, and they probably did sweep it, roughly. But at the same time, you know, what are they expecting him to do? Go back to his room and have a pot noodle, not invite a harem of prostitutes. That is a danger, and it leaves him susceptible to blackmail. And we don't know whether that blackmail was a particular problem. Now, let me tell you something. The latest email from Jeffrey Epstein. So when he said that he'd gone to New York, and I was doing it because I was so honourable. Well, let me tell you what he actually did. He did go back to New York and said he couldn't associate with Jeffrey Epstein anymore. And he also followed up with an email saying that he was attempting to raise finance for a business he was working with of $200 million. Could Jeffrey find somebody? Now, the standard finder's rate for this sort of finance would be 5%, which means that Prince Andrew stood to make $10 million just by emailing Jeffrey Epstein. But the stories get worse and worse and worse. What about Prince Andrew's visit to Kazakhstan? Well, let me tell you about Sunninghill Park near Ascot. It was a wedding present from Queen Elizabeth II to Prince Andrew, obviously when he married Sarah Ferguson. Queen Elizabeth II paid £8 million for it. When Prince Andrew wanted to move to Royal Lodge, he put it up for sale for £12 million. Yep. Okay. To be fair, property had gone up in value, although these mega beasts don't tend to accumulate value in the way that your house or my house might. But okay, he wanted 12 million. For 18 months, there were no viewings at all. Nobody looked at it. And in fact, actually, there were no viewings even for the sale because unbelievably, on his visit to Kazakhstan, he sat down with the president of the country and raised as point one that he wanted £12 million for his house. He was on a trade mission to what is about to become one of the world's biggest producers of oil and gas. He gets his full coterie of people. He hires a hotel full of hookers. And the first thing he mentions is, can you buy my house even though you don't need it? And let me tell you, the president of Kazakhstan obliged. His son-in-law paid 15 million for the property. He never even looked at it. He has never lived in it. He's never even visited it. And he paid 3 million more than the asking price with no other bids on the table whatsoever. That, I'm afraid, is straight up corruption. What did Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor sell to the Kazakhs in exchange for this overpayment for his house? It seemed equally, how many other hotels around the world did he use for prostitutes? Because it absolutely stinks. If the Prime Minister goes on a visit to a country, stays in the ambassador's residence, we were talking about a whole floor at the Mandarin Oriental at a cost of £15,000 a night, which actually sounds relatively cheap for the whole floor of a five-star hotel. But then again, it was in Hong Kong where prices are a bit lower. This is just straight up corruption. And what about, have you heard about Andrew Inverness? So, as you know, he has 4 surnames. He can call himself, or he could at the time, he can call himself Mountbatten-Windsor, he can call himself York, he can call himself Inverness, or he can call himself Killylee. But under the name Andrew Inverness, he took out a credit card with a credit limit of £3 million, and the chairman of the bank that gave him the credit card paid off the entire bill out of his own pocket immediately without Prince Andrew having to pay a penny at all. Now, that was because he had promised the bank that he would help introduce them to the UK government and get work. So, let's be clear. Prostitutes on expenses, they'd lock you up. Being a risk to national security, well, they'd definitely throw you out of power for that. Expensing stuff that shouldn't be used, they'd lock you up for that. Taking a £3 million loan for nothing, they'd lock you up for that. Because obviously you're doing it in order to get work from the British government illicitly. And the final thing, if you had a house, and let's scale it down, that you had up for £120,000 and a Kazakh you'd never met, who never planned to live there, gave you 150 and you worked as a local government officer, they'd throw you in prison. I guarantee you, they'd throw you in prison. I think what all of this tells you is what I've said from the very start. I don't think that Prince Andrew is a pervert. I think that he's a leech. I think that he's somebody who has traded off his royal connections to bring in millions from incredulous sources, and to literally just stick his hand in the till. And I think it absolutely stinks. But where do we get to now? I don't disagree with the Metropolitan Police saying that there's nothing really for them to investigate in the UK over Jeffrey Epstein. But expensing prostitutes on the taxpayer is fraud, and it is something that should be looked into. Not him to repay it, not the king to say, oh, well, I'll stick my hand in my own till and pay for it. No, it's literally, if you went on a trip by the British government and you bought a train ticket for your girlfriend, you would get into serious trouble. Hiring prostitutes on government expenses is wholly unacceptable. This man needs to be reined in. I accept that he's now off the estate. I accept that he's now being paid for privately by the king. But in that role as trade ambassador, where he had behaved appallingly throughout, he now needs to be investigated over that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe. Also hit the bell notification icon, and please consider a donation to the Patriot Fund. We will send out an update to tell you where the money was spent. Until next time, goodbye.